Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I bring you founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, artists, you name it, across the world of crypto and blockchain globally. And I have, you guessed it, another amazing guest. All my guests are amazing, and this is going to be an interview I'm really looking forward to. I have the founder and CEO of Intuition with me today. His name is Billy Ludke. Billy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. Really excited for this.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining me. The first thing I ask everybody is, what's your background and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think it is. So I did my undergrad in systems engineering, which is a relatively broad topic, and it deals with just systems generally, which I think is really cool because everything is a system. Like the way that people move through society, like society is a system, like a warehouse or a supply chain is a system. So it's not necessarily just technological systems, it's just systems generally. And I thought that was kind of generally applicable to anything. And so that's why I did that. And then coming out of college, my first real job was working on this distributed seismic network at Caltech with the United States Geological Survey Office. Just randomly stumbled into that, and that ended up being extremely relevant. So I got early exposure to distributed systems and got involved in crypto around the same time. So I've been in crypto since 2012, been involved with Ethereum since early 2014. Helped start the blockchain consulting practice at Ernst & Young back in, I guess, 2015 or so. And then moved over to Consensus, where I've actually been for 7 years. I'm still a special advisor to Consensus. So I've been there probably longer than almost anyone. And along that journey, I did a bunch of decentralized identity stuff. So starting when I was at EY, I was building these KYC POCs, which led me to randomly stumble into the early formations of the Decentralized Identity Foundation, which led me to meet the Uport team. And so when I ended up joining Consensus, I ended up working with the Uport team, which was one of the first self-sovereign identity projects built on Ethereum. So I think because of that, it all kind of culminated in this. And even what intuition is largely dictated by where it came from. So I guess the background is even more applicable. So I'll just quickly frame that because it also helps frame what intuition is. So where intuition came from was last cycle. I had taken a leave of absence from Consensus to focus on my own portfolio, and I was doing a ton of angel investing and advisory work. And my unique value prop to people was, hey, let me connect the dots for you. Let me tell you who's come before, who exists now, best practices, tooling, things like that. And that worked great. But I found myself on all of these calls and meetings all the time, and I didn't really like the meetings. And so I thought to myself, how can I disintermediate myself here? And so what I did was I took my mind map of Web3 and I put it into this kind of visual knowledge graph that you could navigate for yourself. So instead of needing to come to me to ask me questions like, hey, what are the layer 2 teams that you like? And who are the people on them that you like and that I should talk to or whatever, you could just go to the knowledge graph and find that information for yourself. And that worked great. And I just started using this to keep track of my own stuff because I had a million browser tabs. I still have a million browser tabs open, so nothing's changed. But a million browser tabs open, like 1,000 bookmarks that I've never gone back to them a single time. I've never used a bookmark in my entire life, I don't think. I use Roam Research and I take notes and I tag things with things properly sometimes, but it's not like really good for organizing lists of things. So I just started using this like nice visual tool to keep track of my own stuff. And in keeping track of it for me, it kept track of it for everyone else with no additional friction. So all my friends, my portcos, my clients, they could just like see the information that I was aggregating as I navigated the crypto ecosystem. And so then I thought to myself, okay, that's pretty cool, but it's just my knowledge in the knowledge graph. But what if that wasn't the case? What if it was everyone's knowledge in the knowledge graph? And what if people were incentivized to add good data to the knowledge graph? That'd be pretty interesting. And the more I thought about it, the more obsessed I got with it, because at first I was just thinking about it in the context of crypto, but then I thought, wow, this like actually can kind of change the world, I think. And then I went to kind of architect it and started writing the white paper. What it started to look like was the way that you achieve this is you leverage a lot of the decentralized identity and data and finance primitives that have been kind of emerging over the past couple of years. So it's really this like composition of all of this amazing work done by a lot of different people with like a bunch of interesting innovations on top to help you build this kind of crowdsourced, decentralized, permissionless semantic knowledge graph composed of verifiable data about things. And that's the background.
I have two follow-ups. I never have two follow-ups after the first response, but the first one is part of your story includes a Denver hackathon story.
Yes, it
What
does.
was what was that about?
Yeah, so I had written this white paper. And at the time I was jamming on this stuff with this guy Odysseus. Shout out Odysseus, love Odysseus. Um, and we were like, hey, let's go to Denver and build a POC for this thing. So I kind of like shopped the white paper around and started asking on Twitter and stuff who might be interested in building a POC. And we assembled a team of like 12 people to fly out to Denver to work on this hackathon project. And we the maximum team size was 4, so we kind of segregated people out into a couple different teams. But a lot of people worked on kind of general intuition stuff. And so we built kind of the first POC to kind of prove whether or not the concept was actually capable of being achieved, and made it to the finals, got to present to Vitalik, didn't end it up like winning. I think we won some of the tracks. We weren't like the main winners or anything, but we did really good. And then afterwards, everyone was like, hey, we should probably keep building this, right? And I was like, I guess so. And so for about a year, we had a team of about 8 that worked unpaid on the first iterations of Intuition before we raised any money because everyone was so excited about it. So that was pretty cool.
I entered my first hackathon in May. We submitted chain link one, so we'll see what happens. I'm not the developer or the lead. I just helped out, so we'll see. You
I love
know,
it. That's amazing.
pretty cool. So the other follow up I had, you said you worked at the geological survey, right? So, what's your background in geology?
Zero. It was like I thought it was interesting. I thought it was awesome. I just thought it was cool what they were doing. So basically the concept was, and I won't go too deep down this rabbit hole, but I'll just talk about it a little bit because it's interesting. So before this thing called the Quake Catcher Network, and I don't know what the status of all this is now. I don't pay attention to this world at all. But they would they had these really big, expensive seismometers that they would place in very strategic locations to try to track seismic activity. And then the goal of the Quake Catcher Network, which was the thing that I was working on, was what if we had really small, really inexpensive seismometers that you could put anywhere? Like you could put them in your house, you could put them in a college, a university, museum. So I was working with these like higher learning institutions, like universities, libraries, things like that, and installing these sensors in all of these just everywhere we could get coverage. And so instead of you just having like one really big one in one spot, the thought was you have this distributed network of seismometers that is way more effective at tracking seismic activity. And we use something called BOINC, which is the Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network Computing. It's what they use for like SETI at home and things like that. So that was, yeah, I don't know anything about geology or that stuff, but I thought it was cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I undergrad. My degree was in liberal arts, but I had 3 concentrations: business, communications, and geology. And you're doing these. You talk about the graph that you built and that network. And I'm thinking contour maps. I'm thinking, the design of a geological survey map is similar to what you're doing. So
Wow.
I just wanted to get that, perspective. Um, so my first question regarding your graph, regarding what you're doing now, is attestations. What are they, and how do you incentivize them?
That's a great question. So the way that I think about attestations is really simple. I just think of them as signed data about things. And to kind of elaborate on that concept, so in the early days of Ethereum, you were signing transactions with your self-sovereign private keys, which is great. But then the thought was like, okay, what if there was like one additional step where, you signed a transaction about a thing, like that's an attestation. So like the thing had like the transaction has some sort of message, and then the message is about a subject. So it could be like Bob is trustworthy. That's really all an attestation is. And what the current state of attestations is they are mainly being used in specific contexts for purely deterministic stuff. So I think where we're seeing the most traction is kind of in the quest world, in the anti-Sybil world, where you go to Galaxy or Layer 3 and you do the quest and they issue an attestation that's just saying, hey, like we verified some set of criteria, and because we were able to verify this criteria, here's an attestation that says you completed the quest. So it's just a signed message that says quest complete, you're good, we have verifiable evidence that you did it, so now you can go claim your airdrop. So mainly only businesses are doing it, and it's for like deterministic things. It's not like for subjective stuff. So it's not, hey, this smart contract, I like it and it's kind of cool, or like this guy is cool, I like working with him. That stuff, really, there's not any of that yet. It's really this purely one-to-one deterministic flow. And so I guess our approach is very different in the sense that I think that the deterministic one-to-one stuff is really just the tip of the iceberg. Because if you think about like the important data about things, oftentimes it's the subjective stuff. So it's, whether or not a person is good at their job or trustworthy or things like that. And you can get that through credentials, but you can also get it through kind of the wisdom of the crowds, or it's the sentiment around a publication, or it's the reviews on a product or business. All of these things, you don't really want just one trusted entity telling you, yes, verified by this thing. You want a bunch of different data points from a bunch of different people to make a decision or arrive at a conclusion. So yes, we can accommodate the more objective stuff, but we're really focused on these solving the problem of these more subjective claims about things. And I use the word claims about things interchangeably with attestations, because that's really all it is. I'll pause there before moving into the second piece of your question, if you want to comment or ask questions.
No, no. Thank you for telling what they are. Yeah, how do you like if they're only deterministic? How do you incentivize them, and would there be more opportunity to incentivize them if they were subjective?
Yeah, exactly. So what we do is basically there's two ways to incentivize these types of things. Actually, there's two ways, and then there's four different kind of levers that you can pull. So to create a parallel for how to think about this, let's think about the Web 2 world and quote unquote attestations in the Web 2 world. So an Amazon review is kind of like an attestation. It's not an attestation because it's not signed by a self-sovereign private key, but you're making a claim about a thing. And if you look at the data, no one is like 97% of people aren't actively leaving reviews. Like I've never written an Amazon review, I've never written a Yelp review, I've never done a LinkedIn endorsement. I do 5 stars on Uber every time because I don't care. And everyone I talk to also is not an active contributor to these platforms. So looking at that, you think, okay, in Web 2, the UX is really easy. Sometimes all you have to do is click 5 stars, and even then people don't do it. So just having the infrastructure to claim things about things is obviously not enough. And I think that's the assumption that people are operating in attestation land is, oh, if you build it, they'll come. And the answer is no, they won't come. Why would people go out of their way to spend their time and energy to make claims about things, like if they have no reason to do it? And so then you have that it becomes kind of a relatively philosophical question. And so our answer is that there's four kind of categories of incentives that you can tap into to get people to want to claim things about things. One of them is economic. I'll start with that. It's the most complex and it's our biggest innovation. So I can go into this one in way more detail. But basically, when you contribute data to intuition, you get ownership of that data, like fractional ownership. And then anytime anyone in the future interacts with that data, you get paid. And so basically you can think of it like when you go to create the data, you got to pay some small fee because there's a cost of storage, there's a cost of all of this computation that needs to happen. So just like a gas cost, you got in an entirely permissionless system, there has to be a fee to doing things or else you get Sybil and DOS attacked to death. So small fee gets paid. Think of it like a gas cost. Where that gas cost goes is not to like miners or validators or whatever. It goes to purchasing ownership or equity in the piece, like the data that you're creating. And then where the rest of that fee goes is to all the other owners of that data, like that's adjacent to the thing that you're trying to say. So basically on purely the rights with a W, like the right side of the data, you can build these incentive models that kind of create these interesting games that hopefully get people to want to claim things about things. And I'll remain on the economic piece for one more second and frame it with the parallel in Web 2. So think about you watch a YouTube video and I'm like, wow, if your response is that piece of content was totally worth consuming, my response right now is, okay, I don't hit the like button. Maybe I'm a bad person, but I don't hit the like button. I don't subscribe. Maybe I'll share it with a couple of friends via text. But what if you were economically rewarded for liking a thing early? So you watch the video, it only has 100 likes, and you say to yourself, wow, this piece of content is really worth consuming. I'm going to take an economic bet on the fact that this is going to get a lot of likes because every subsequent like, I'm going to get some money from it. So then the thing, you like it as a 100th person, and then 10 million people like it, you're getting fees from all of those subsequent 10 million people. So that's kind of the economic model on the right side of the equation. And then on the read side of the equation, now that you have verifiable attribution of who created the data in the first place, you can flow revenue back to the people who created the data when the data is used for anything. So let's say it's some arbitrary cost per query model and a person's paying a penny to query the data or hit the API. I don't know, whatever. You can flow a fraction of that penny to the people who created the data that gets returned as a result from their query or something like that. It's way more complex and it's way more gamifiable than the other piece. So we're focused on kind of the right with the W side of things first, but that's kind of the economic lever. And I'll pause there before moving into the other ones.
I like it. I think right now, if we did it that way, my sons who follow people on TikTok and YouTube, they would be millionaires.
Probably, yeah. That's the thing. I come across things all the time where I'm like, oh, I'm early to this one. I want to signal that I believe in this thing. I want verifiable attribution of me claiming a thing at a certain point in time. And I also want to make money from it. That's what I want.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds good. Okay. The other three?
Yeah.
Economic?
So we have economic, and then we have function. Maybe these are bad categories, and if anyone has any recommendations for how to change them, let me know. But we've got functional, educational, and reputational. So on the functional piece, maybe you want to make attestations about things if it's really easy and it provides you some value, not economic value, but like solve some pain point in your daily life. So going back to my angel investing advisory knowledge graph thing, that was functionally useful to me. Like this tool, I was basically creating claims about things by categorizing them, tagging them, adding data about them, because I was organizing my own life. It was like I was just doing it purely selfishly for me to lump all the wallets that I had discovered together and all the AMMs, and it's, oh, you're bridging over to this chain, here's the bridge that I like to take. So I was adding data about things because it was useful to me, but then it was also by proxy useful to everyone else. So maybe you want to make attestations because it's easy and it's useful. Cool. And then the reputational piece is, let's say we're on Amazon again. So one reason I don't leave reviews about anything is because my reputation doesn't get me anything. Like I can still buy any product that I want without reviewing a single thing. And not only does my reputation not get me anything in the context of Amazon, it doesn't get me anything in the context outside of Amazon because my reputation is not portable. But what if, I could take my reputation as a good Amazon reviewer and get an under collateralized loan in DeFi or open a bank account or something. There's some tangible value to building reputation. Like it has, even though it's maybe hard to quantify, there is some value in having a strong reputation. So what if you could do interesting stuff with this now portable reputation? So maybe now in this world of portable reputation, you care about making claims about things because making good claims about things increases your reputation in those contexts. And now you can take that reputation across contexts and use them for whatever arbitrary thing that you want to do. And I guess like the reputational piece starts to tie over into the educational piece, where when you also think about Amazon. So another reason I don't leave reviews on things like Amazon, and I don't want to box this whole thing into being a review thing, but it's just a nice attestation parallel. So I'll just keep using it. But basically, I don't have an Amazon friends list, which seems wild. So like I don't have an Amazon social graph. So I see when I go to a product, I see 10,000 reviews from anonymous people that I don't know. And there's some value in that. I still go and I still say, oh, 5 stars, 10,000 reviews. Like, yeah, I'm gonna buy this one, even though I know the data's flawed. But one trusted opinion from a person that I trust is worth more to me typically than 10,000 anonymous reviews. So once you can kind of have these portable social graphs, you could overlay something like Amazon with contextual trust graphs. So you can say, hey, I trust Dr. Huberman in the context of supplements, and now I'm shopping for supplements. So overlay the attestational data with, my trust graph. And oh, look, Dr. Huberman claimed that he likes this supplement. I don't care about what everyone else is saying. I just care what the people I trust are saying about these things. And the reason you might want to make claims about things in that scenario is because then the people you care about are seeing your reviews. Like if I leave a review right now, it's just going to get lost probably. And so I've wasted, 5-10 minutes of my time to create something that no one that I care about is ever going to see, which I'm just shouting into the ether. But what if that wasn't the case? Like I recommend things in group chats all the time. I text people, I have conversations with people. So I'm doing it. I'm attesting to things. I'm claiming things about things in real life, but I'm not capturing that data online at the point of interaction with the thing. So it's the data's fragmented. It's not discoverable. It's kind of in the social fabric of society floating around, not in the platforms where you're actually doing the interaction. So that was really long-winded, but I hope that kind of framed things relatively well.
It makes perfect sense to me. So pretty much everything I do is in the social fabric of the earth.
Exactly. Yeah. And well, that's why it's called intuition, because we're trying to build the intuition module of the collective conscious. So it's like it's the data's out there. It's in the social fabric of the earth. But that's not really readily accessible. Like I don't know how we tap into the ether. So what we have to do is we have to get people to express the same things, but in the digital realm, in a structured format that's semantic, so that we can actually use the data to make better decisions in our everyday lives, because we now have a lot more data about things.
We have a lot more data. We have a lot more decisions. We don't have our data in one customizable place. But if we did, what would be possible?
Everything. I think.
I
Yeah.
think
I think it changes everything. And yeah, I can not tongue in cheek elaborate on that. So I think what's possible is the way that I view what we're building is we're trying to build this trustful interaction layer. So I'll break that down a little bit. So trustful just means you have trust, and then interaction layer is like the layer of society where you interact with things. So think about, like, most things are interaction. So we're talking, this is an interaction. I buy a thing, it's an interaction. I click approve on my MetaMask because I'm approving tokens to send to some contract. Interaction. A lot of interactions everywhere. Now all of Web3 is really focused on trustless code. trying to migrate society from these subjective trust systems to these objective trust systems where trust is actually just removed from the equation and you can verify, not trust. But that is actually oftentimes a bug and not a feature when you don't have trustful interaction, because person interacts with the wrong smart contract, code is trustless, but it's the wrong code, it's a scammer, and then you lose all your money or you lose your identity. So not great. And so like we have to. I'm going to start talking about this a lot more, and I'm going to release the updated intuition white paper soon that kind of elaborates on all these concepts. But we have to focus on this interaction layer. And if you think about crypto, we almost have even stronger of a reliance on these subjective trust mechanisms because of what I just described, because it's this extremely high risk environment where if you interact with the wrong things, it's not like I'm buying a product on Amazon and I can return it, or it's a $10 thing. I could lose all of the money in my wallet, and people don't really have they don't abide by best practices, and they put all their money in their hot wallet and then they lose it all. It just happens all of the time. And so I think that what is possible with what we're doing is giving people a little bit more certainty whenever they go to interact with stuff. And the stuff can be anything. It can be a smart contract on Ethereum. It could be a person they're trying to hire. It can be a product they're trying to buy. It could be they're browsing for podcasts and they want to know which podcast to interact with. Just trying to take this data of society that presently is either remains unexpressed or is expressed into the social fabric of society and is not captured in the digital realm in any structured way. Take all of that stuff and then take all the stuff we already have in Web 2. And that's going to be a little bit harder because there's like centralized gatekeepers protecting the data. But there is good data in platforms like Twitter, Amazon, Yelp, Wikipedia, whatever. So take all that stuff, take all this other stuff that either remains unexpressed or expressed in fragmented ways, and combine it together into this open, permissionless, decentralized knowledge graph. And I think that, an example of what the world can look like is, let's say you're going to interact with a smart contract or just a general ETH address using MetaMask. Like, instead of just seeing a bunch of non-human readable jargon, at the point of interaction, you can see, oh, here's the 10 smart contract auditors I trust. 3 out of 10 of them have said that this thing is audited. Amazing. I'm gonna click confirm. Or, this army of DeFi degens that I really trust have all claimed that this is a scam. So I'm gonna reject the transaction and not have it go through. Like, these things are already happening. Like, but what you have to do to find the information is you have to scroll through Twitter, you have to scroll through the group chats. If you're technical, you can actually read the smart contract code. It's just not very efficient. So what I want is, at the point of interaction, you just have more data about the thing that you're about to interact with. So it's like, okay, people claiming things about things and then serving that data at the point of interaction.
It's interesting that you said you could lose all your money or you could lose your identity, right? There's 3 promises to blockchain, right?
What are the 3 promises?
Banking for the unbanked, or if you're a Celsius, unbanking your bank. We won't get that. Identity for the unidentified, and something else that no one focuses on, but you do. It's a voice for the voiceless. You're giving people a voice.
Yep. I think that's a huge one. And I think it's becoming ever more prevalent in the society that we live in. And it's a difficult balance, like, because when you start dealing with the identities of people, and if you let basically, we let anyone claim anything about anything, and our primitives allow you to do that. Where it gets tricky is when you start dealing with claims about people and you enter kind of data privacy laws. But I don't know. I think that the protocol has to remain unopinionated. We can't, if we start preventing people from saying certain things, we enter this slippery slope of censorship, and who knows where we end up. So hopefully people don't abuse the system. They will, because it's crypto, and like someone somewhere out there will do it. But For things that aren't people, I think the answer is real obvious. And I think people don't focus on this enough, where giving people a voice about things that aren't, human entities is really important, because I want to be able to claim. So the whole decentralized identity world is based on this concept of kind of private data by default and then selective disclosure. So you selectively disclose the data that you want to disclose about yourself. Now, where that breaks down is entities that don't have agency over themselves. So let's say, like, I want to claim something about the concept Ethereum. How is Ethereum going to selectively disclose its data? It's not a thing that can do that. So, like, and then you'd have to give someone agency over the concept Ethereum. Who's going to be that person? Is it going to be Vitalik? Then we start enter this world of centralization. So you kind of have to have data as a public good in these scenarios. You have to let people claim anything they want about anything and display that data. So when you deal with things that aren't people, I think the answer is obvious. When you deal with people, it gets more sensitive. But I don't know. My argument is I want to be able to claim some bad things about people. I want to claim that SBF's a scammer. I want to claim that the 3 Hours Capital guys are scammers. And if you can't do that, and you're only basing all of your judgments on positive attestations about things, which is the only thing that you can do in this world of selective disclosure, because their argument is the lack of positive attribute or positive attestations is signal that there's negative sentiment. But if you look at the 3 Hours Capital guys or SBF or whatever, they had a lot of really positive claims made about them. And so they could selectively disclose just the positive front ones from before they were caught. And so then it would look like they were highly reputation, like they had really high reputations. So I think it's weird and it's nuanced and it's hard, and people like to dance around it. And the easy answer is, privacy by default, selective disclosure. But that, I don't think that's the right answer. It's way more nuanced. And so we have to think about these things, because to your point, I think I also agree. Freedom of expression is so important, and it is a superpower that crypto unlocks that people don't often talk about. So I'm really excited to try to bring it to reality.
I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. And this is my show, and I can say SBF is a scammer. And I can say the 3 Hours guys were scammers, and I can say that Gary Gensler is a scammer.
Yep.
Been shut down since. Yeah. So, I do, want to say a few hundred episodes ago, like 3 years ago, I interviewed some people and we talked about trust. We're still talking about trust because there's been no improvement, we're still running at a trust deficit, I think more now than ever. What would the world look like if we had a truly, genuinely trustless global society?
Oh man, I think that's the ultimate end state, and that's what we need to strive for. I think removing trust from the equation trust is a requirement of coordination, and coordination is humanity's superpower. And so, like, if you are able to remove trust from all of our interactions and make everything trustless, you enter this world where we are able to collaborate and coordinate at a scale that is orders of magnitudes better than what we're capable of doing right now. But I think in order to get to full trustlessness, that requires a lot of invasiveness, which I think the only place to get to real trustlessness, people in blockchain world, I think they're like, oh yeah, we got trustless systems now. But it's like, no, it's built on the back of social consensus, everything social consensus all the way down. So, but to get like real trustlessness, we need to like all have the neural links. We'd all need to be able to read each other's minds, and then have nothing be private, and we're all just this Borg. So I don't know if it's really achievable or good. I don't know. I'm happy to rant philosophically about that for hours, but that's kind of the only way that we get true trustlessness. So in the meantime, my hypothesis and like this thing that I'm trying to put out into the world is we can't make everything trustless. We don't even want to. So let's make them more trustful or trusted. If you prefer one of those words, let me know, because like trying to A/B test the two. But like, yeah. Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yeah, so I think it's a moot point to think about full trustlessness. And I think what we have to do is we have to think about the trust stack. And we have to think about it holistically, and then we have to carve out the pieces of the trust stack that we can make trustless. And we've done a really good job at that. So, we've got trustless consensus, and we've got trustless execution, and we got trustless storage, and we now have self-sovereign private keys. So we kind of have like trustless identity in a way. But it's not the full system. So going back to me being like a systems engineer, like you view the whole thing as like one system, you're still operating. You will have to keep operating for probably thousands of years on some trust assumptions. Even if the code is trustless, unless you're reading every single line of code that has been written, you're trusting somebody somewhere. Maybe you're trusting an auditing firm. Maybe you're trusting a really technical friend of yours, but you have to trust people still. So I don't know even how we get really to full trustlessness anytime soon, or ever, without extremely invasive technologies.
Yeah, we're human, so by fault, that's yeah, I agree. That's the danger of AI. We'll get into that's a different topic. I do. I enjoyed speaking with you today. I want to thank you very much for your time. I could probably talk to you for a few more hours. My podcast don't go that long, so we have to come back again. I have one last question for you. How can people find out more information about you, about intuition, about what you start using your platform? How can they do that?
Yeah, so our website is intuition.systems. You can find everything from the website. On Twitter, we're OX Intuition. On Twitter, I'm 0xBilly. If you want to stay up to date on things, we're about to launch to production in about a month. So follow us, turn notifications on, pay attention. I'll be dropping the updated white paper soon. Please give that a read. Let me know your thoughts. Most of the conversation happens on Twitter and in Discord, so make sure to follow us there and join our Discord. And feel free to always reach out if you ever want to chat or have any questions. I'm always available. Twitter is the best way to reach me. Again, just 0xBilly. But yeah, that's us.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. This is awesome.